Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Silent Breed is people! One morning, I shot an elephant in my pajamas. How he got in my pajamas, I don't know.
They call me Mr. Tibbs.
E.T. Phone home.
It's the Al Travis Show. We're lucky to have him. Brian McDaniel, he's a principal there at Momentum Advocacy. I believe they're still doing wrong about everything. How are you doing, sir?
Not doing too shabby yet. Wrong About Everything is in its 12th year, and we are.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That'd have been one of the first podcasts where I wasn't paying attention for a while. You're right on the brink of that. That's great.
it predated President Trump, and the first podcast I ever listened to was one that I was on. So.
How cool is that? Good for you. Momentum Advocacy is the group you're with. You're an attorney, a college professor. You've been in this, the public relations, government affairs for about 25 years. Tell me if I'm overstating this. We radio guys like to do this. But this decision by the judge, and I think it was Ramsey County, to pull out the binary trigger rule law that was passed in the omnibus bill and say, no, you can't do that. Could this not be the biggest decision in the courts for as far as how legislation goes in Minnesota in maybe the last 40 years? Am I the only one thinking it's that big, or is it not?
No. It is that big.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, without question. As soon as I had heard about Judge Castro's decision, my mind immediately went to, well, if the binary trigger part is out, well, then that means everything is out. And it didn't necessarily mean that initially, but it really does signal that really the whole, Democrat trifecta agenda from 2024 might be going out the window here. And that's seismic in the ripples that will happen.
So if you do this for a living and you catch that, I want to say the average Minnesotan, the guys I golf with, it was like, oh, whatever. They don't know, but this will. And again, let's talk through it a little bit. The judge just took the binary trigger thing. Whether you like it or not isn't even the issue. He didn't even rule on that. He just said it couldn't be a part of it because of this omnibus thing. He practically told people, the other 10 people that are groups that say, hey, I don't like what happened to me in that session, to come get it out of the apple, take that bite out of the apple. Are you allowed to, one guy go up and say this whole thing makes no sense? The judge just ruled on it, blow the whole thing out of the water and be done with it? Or do we have to nickel and dime this to get that out? I don't know how it works.
It kind of depends what the suit is. Now, the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, very much to their credit, kind of stayed within the lines of what they, had standing to talk about, and they were successful. But really, there could be, the Center for the American Experiment. There could be taxpayer watchdog groups. There could be a group that didn't get as much as they wanted. They could be a group that got too much. Who knows? Anybody now can kind of come forward saying that, this bill was unconstitutional. And I mean, those of us who were there, Republican, Democrat, male, female, left, right, white, black, whatever it may be, we all knew that this was wrong as it was happening. The members who voted for it were afterwards some of them, quite embarrassed about what had just happened. And, those of us who've been doing this long enough, the single subject rule doesn't come up that often, though it should come up every year because it's violated every year. But it has come up before in 2003, oddly enough, with another gun issue. They had amended conceal and carry legislation onto a circus bill. And ultimately, they determined that was inappropriate. They had to come back and they had to just redo it, which they had the votes to do. But this is something that comes up, but almost every omnibus bill violates the single subject rule. And it's been getting worse and worse and worse by the year.
And this is both sides. This is not me ripping the Democrats and not me ripping the Republicans. We're just talking the 2004 bill. If you don't mind me wasting massive amounts of time, Article 4, Section 17. That's what we're talking about. This thing was written for guys like me, not lawyers like you. Laws to embrace only one subject. No law shall embrace more than one subject, which shall be expressed in its title. That's the whole law. This isn't some crazy lawyer, Section B of the 34. This is made for Al to understand, because this was written in 1857, whatever, right? Farmer Al could say, oh, that makes sense. One topic, one thing. How then, Brian, since you've been in this business, have we have omnibus bill after omnibus bill? How has that been getting by? And how do they still hold a leg that this isn't? Why do we not follow this law?
Well, and what I would say is like, if you wanted to say that the one subject is education, transportation, healthcare, I can come along with that. And
Yes.
I say, okay, an omnibus education bill that deals with education language, fine. But the problem is that they just openly, thwart the law by putting, education in state
Gun
government,
laws, yeah.
or whatever it might be. And
Yeah.
I mean, they know it's wrong. The only reason that they do it is because they get away with it most of the time. The courts haven't really been all that interested in overturning the will of the legislature, but this one was just so egregious that Judge Castro couldn't ignore it. But it's something that has come along with, a few people in each body and each caucus essentially get to write all of the bills, and all of the duly elected officials that we vote for, they have very little influence over it, and that's wrong.
Well, I also see it as the folks doing this, the voting on both sides again, the management is letting this happen. They know the law, but the underlings, the others, have a place to hide. We never know where someone stands. I don't have a clue where everybody voted on the binary trigger thing. This is not something I'm all up and into, but I'll never know, because every one of them can say, yeah, I voted for that bill because that had that in there, dag nabbit. And the other guy's like, I didn't vote for it because that other stuff. You can hide behind all this. That's, I think, why we wrote that law, is so I know where my legislator stands. Now, if binary trigger is my only thing I care about, then you're good. But it's in the mix of all the other things we vote about, but you can't get it because everybody can hide.
No, and and there's always been, well, I should say, as long as I've been around, this will be my 26th year. There have been omnibus bills. They've just been a lot smaller and more targeted. When I was staff, 2003 to 2000, I'm sorry, 2000 to 2006, we would pass bill, and now we only pass,
The big omnibus.
Dozens of bills, because everything just gets put in these massive omnibus bills, and it does make the legislature less transparent. It does make the average legislator less important, and it does give them a place to hide.
See, and it's funny because I've talked to some legislators like, well, we can't get all our work done. You wouldn't know how much, there's so many bills. Yeah, there were like 4,000 bills brought up last year. I don't know. I might have named 3 that I think we can improve stuff on. You don't need 4,000. Wouldn't it make them prioritize? Hey, Bob, on the transportation, I can only get 3 bills through this year. Your thing doesn't happen. We weed out the weak instead of saying, put it in the omnibus at the end. We'll get this thing done. You know what I'm saying? We don't need 4,000 bills a year.
We don't need 4,000 bills a year. But what I would say is that it gets to be kind of a First Amendment issue that, Representative A, B, or C feels strongly about something, so they bring it forward. But one, you don't have to pass every bill. I don't have any problem necessarily with debate. Debate the bill and say no. The problem is they don't want to say no. So rather than saying no, rather than, kind of putting some brakes or some limits or safeguards, they just don't hear the bill. And then I think they're not educating themselves. They're not educating people on something. It's just doing your job is really what it is. And that's not really trying to be, dismissive or rude. Just want to remind them, this is what you're elected to do. Vote yes, vote no. That's what you're supposed to do.
I love that. We're going to go to break. When we come back, I want to ask you on the other side, because Walz and Attorney General Ellison are talking about possibly appealing this decision. And for the life of me, I think they're opening a can of worms they don't want to do. We'll talk about it with Brian McDaniel right after this. Momentum Advocacy.
Tired of one-sided media and divisive noise drowning out your conservative values? Take back the conversation with Braver Angels. Join a grassroots movement to restore civility and find common ground without compromising your principles. As a conservative, your voice matters. Share your perspective on issues like immigration and public health in Red-Blue workshops and help rebuild trust in our great nation. Be a leader in depolarizing America. Sign up for free at mn.braverangels.org. Braver Angels, where conservatives, liberals, and independents unite for a stronger republic.
Think about it. Now that school's out for the summer, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Don't need to ask him his opinion more than once. Al Travis on the Al Travis Show.
We've got him, Brian McDaniels from Momentum Advocacy, talking about what's going on in the state of Minnesota. This is bigger than you think. So the Attorney General, the governor, think they might want to appeal this decision that we're talking about as far as pulling that gun owners thing out of an omnibus bill. I try to put myself in their shoes. I don't see the upside. You have a 1,400-page bill. This one thing gets pulled out. It's your 2004. This is the trifecta. Got everything they wanted. You miss this one thing. If they do, and the Supreme Court says, yeah, sorry, we read the thing like Al did, you lose everything. Am I missing something? Is this an all or nothing for them for this one binary trigger thing?
Well, I don't know that certainly the binary trigger thing by itself is not a big enough deal. I mean, that's something that they would have liked. They probably get all the credit for it. They need it anyway. They probably don't care if it really happens or doesn't happen.
Fair enough.
But they probably do need to try to defend this, because if they do nothing, the lawsuits are coming to take everything. If they do this and lose, well, then they're just back where they were before, where the lawsuits are coming to take everything away. So I do think that they run a huge risk by having the court not agree with them, but they only have bad options at this point.
Yeah.
And frankly, and if I offend somebody on this, who's an elected official, I'm sorry, but this was practically inevitable. And deep down inside, they don't want to admit it, but they know this was wrong and not the way government should work, and needs to be stopped. A part that is going to make it complicated is this is a large part of Speaker Hortman's legacy. Uh,
Mhm.
and everyone knows,
Yeah.
Hortman was assassinated earlier this summer. So if this gets dismantled, it is to a certain degree dismantling the biggest accomplishments
Yeah.
of Speaker Hortman, and there are many Democrats who are going to want to preserve that legacy.
On that same line, though, if you go to the Supreme Court side, use your law hat on this. If they decided, got it, we push this thing down, yes, it's a one subject thing, can they say you can't do it anymore, but we see the problem with just blowing that whole bill out because, oh my gosh, I don't know how you put the what is it, the frogs back in the can or what are the monkeys back in the barrel, because there's so many things in it that would have to retroactively be fixed. Can they just say, shame on you, no more? Or is it, we'll look the other way because this is too complicated a problem?
I mean, there's lots of ways that they could do it. They could certainly, decide that they're going to overturn the lower court ruling, and say, however, they need to make, they can say whatever they want.
Yeah.
It's really almost too big of a deal to not definitively
Define it. Yeah.
find it or to rule on it. But it will be a political decision if they don't take this down, then they will never take anything down ever, other than that this is a court that is just DFL appointees. But
Yeah.
I believe in the courts enough that they're going to rule according to the very clear, plain law and Constitution that we talked about.
See, what's funny about that, because I thought these were pretty normal, and then we had a 3-day discussion on what a quorum is, and we went through all that. I mean, I read this law again. I'm a knucklehead, and I believe they wrote it like that so that Farmer Al could read it and understand what his government was all about. They wanted it that simple, and then you put commas in the wrong spot, and all of a sudden it means something else. Here's what I'd like to ask you about your business, if I can, and if I'm given the secret sauce, please say Al, hush up. Momentum Advocacy, this is what you guys take care of, right? This is going to be the next session. This is going to be chaos for some folks until this gets figured out. Am I in the thing still, Brian? Am I not in the thing? Are they going to blow it up? You guys work when things are worse, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but when it gets this chaotic, this is when folks need Momentum Advocacy, right? I mean, this is when I need somebody like you with 25 years who know these people to discuss what's going on and get us through it. Is this not bad for Minnesota, good for Brian? I don't mean to be mean, but right?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, in this big 1,500-page bill, which I 100% agree, I don't believe was constitutional, there are things in there that I think are good policy. There are
Sure.
things in there that help certain clients of mine, and there are things in there that maybe I would like to have another bite at that apple with a different legislature now. But yes, if you are somebody who got funding, if you are somebody who had an important piece of policy that got pushed through, you're very nervous right now. If your lobbyists are telling you what they should be telling you, you should be nervous now. And the amount of chaos that will come if this does get completely blown up is, I mean, they're going to have to, boy, I can't even tell you, because there's so much that was in this 1,500 page bill on every top. I mean, a couple of small things were passed outside of this major bill, but pretty much most of the stuff that they passed in 2024, when we still had a big budget surplus, was in this bill and will need to be, repassed piece by piece if this happens the way we think it might.
Okay, so someone needs to get a hold of you, right? And they say, okay, I got the thing, or I didn't like the thing, I like the thing. Because there's three outcomes. They blow the whole thing up, and now I'm needing Brian to get me to figure out, okay, I don't count anymore. What do we do to go after to get it back, right? I mean, not like you said, not everything's a bad part of this bill. Good, bad, and different are all going to get blown out. If they only take parts of it and parts are starting to go down that trail and they're going, okay, you're kicked out, you're kicked out, you're kicked out. Well, maybe some people are on the side of wanting it kicked out. Some may be on the side of, I don't want it kicked out. They're going to need you. And again, I can't even imagine what 2026 is going to be like, the session, if we start from scratch. So am I right? Call you. You'll walk them through this. I know this is kind of open for everybody, but you need somebody with 25 years of experience, and I don't even know what your whole staff has when you add it up. Right? Is this the time to call you now? Don't wait until it starts?
Well, I would say you certainly can't wait until February of 2026 when we're back in session.
Yeah.
I would say that this is certainly something that, if you were a client of ours, then hopefully you still are now. But even if you didn't have representation and just want to know, what are the odds, what are next steps? Absolutely, we would be able to help you or direct you to somebody who could get you the answers that you need. But right now, we're trying to figure it all out as well. And the courts hopefully are going to act in an expedited manner, because the longer it drags out, the worse the problem's going to be down the road.
Fair enough, sir. I appreciate you taking the time, and your group is exactly what you need, because you'll figure it out all three ways. I'm sitting here as just Joe Schmo saying, I'm just worried to death. Let Brian McDaniel worry for you, right? I appreciate you being here. MomentumAdvocacy.com. Thank you, sir.